She's not well enough to leave. That's what the woman told me, standing in her own doorway at 2 in the morning with a cardigan buttoned all the way up, like we were discussing a delivery she hadn't ordered. Not my daughter bleeding through a bandage on her arm somewhere behind her. Not my daughter, who had called me 11 minutes earlier and gotten out 4 words before the line went dead. I'm 62 years old. I've got a rebuilt shoulder, a back that files a complaint every time it rains, and a cardiologist who uses the word borderline the way other people use the word fine. And I went through that door like I still had a bunker coat on my back and 20 years of smoke in my lungs. My name's Ray Delgado. I live in East Ridge, Tennessee, just outside Chattanooga, in a brick ranch with a carport my wife always said looked like it was about to give up. 29 years with the fire department, the last 9 as a captain. I know how a door sounds when it's not locked, but somebody's leaning on it. I know the difference between a person who's asleep and a person who isn't. I found out that night that there are worse things than fire. Fire doesn't smile at you across a dinner table for 2 years while it decides what it's going to take from you. It was the second week of October. First real cold snap of the year, the kind where the fog sits on the river like it's got nowhere to be. My phone went off at 2:14 in the morning and lit up the whole bedroom, and I already knew because a father knows. You can be dead asleep and still know. Dad, just that. Then, quieter, like she had her hand cupped around the phone. Dad, they won't let me leave. Then nothing, not hung up, just gone. I drove up Signal Mountain in my house shoes and a coat over pajama pants, doing speeds on those switchbacks that a man my age has no business doing in the dark. 22 minutes from my carport to the Ashby's place. A big cedar and stone thing at the end of a gated drive with a lawn they paid somebody to worry about. I made it in 14. I don't remember most of it. I remember the fog splitting around my headlights and my hands on the wheel and thinking one single sentence over and over. She used my name, she said, Dad. She's still in there. The porch light was on. Marguerite Ashby was already standing under it, 61 years old, hair set, cardigan buttoned, arms folded across herself like a woman guarding a church collection plate. Ray. She said my name like a receptionist. It's very late. Kayla's had an episode. She's resting. Then step aside and let me look at her. She's not well enough to leave. Friend, I have been in rooms where the ceiling was coming down. I have never in my life felt what I felt standing on that porch. Something in my chest went quiet and cold and very, very clear. Marguerite, I said, move. I don't think that's... I put my hand flat on that door, and I walked past a 61-year-old woman in her own entryway. I'm not proud of it. I'd do it again tonight and twice tomorrow. Warren Ashby came out of the kitchen in a cardigan of his own, holding a glass of water. 66 years old and a doctor for 40 of them. And he had the nerve to hold up one hand like he was calming a dog. Ray, hold on now. I wasn't listening. I was already through the front room and into the sunroom at the back, the one with the wicker furniture and the view of the valley they like to show people. My daughter was on the floor. Not the couch, the floor. Face down, one arm folded under her wrong, a throw pillow 6 feet away like somebody had moved it and then thought better of doing anything else. Kayla is 29 years old. She's an emergency room nurse. She's spent 6 years lifting grown men off gurneys, and she was lying on a tile floor in a house full of people, and not one of them had put a blanket on her. Her sleeve had ridden up. There were marks on her forearm above the wrist. Not a bump, not a fall. 4 of them in a row, in the exact spacing God gave a hand. Kayla. My voice came out of somebody else. I got down on knees that scream at me on the stairs at home, and I put 2 fingers under her jaw. Pulse. Fast. Thin. But there. Baby, it's Dad. Open your eyes for me. Nothing. I turned around and Warren had set the glass down on the wicker table, which was the smartest thing that man did all night. What did you people do to her? She takes something for anxiety, Marguerite said from the doorway. Fast. Too fast, like a line she'd practiced in the mirror. She drinks with it, we've told her. She gets worked up, and she can't control herself, and this is what happens. She's unconscious on your floor. She's resting. Where was my son-in-law, you ask? Because that's what I asked. Where's Trent? Nobody answered me. Not one word from either of them. Warren looked at the floor, and Marguerite looked at the wall. And let me tell you something. Friend, 30 years of walking into houses at 3 in the morning taught me that silence is an answer. It's just an answer people are hoping you're too polite to write down. I picked my daughter up off that tile. 29 years old, and she weighed nothing, like she'd been living on coffee and vending machines for a month. I carried her out through their front room and past their nice things, and Warren didn't try to stop me. Marguerite got in the doorway one more time, arms crossed again, and said the sentence I'll be hearing when I'm 90. Ray, if you take her out of here tonight, you're going to make everything so much worse. I looked that woman right in the eye. Ma'am, I said, you have absolutely no idea what you just started. Hey, before we go any further, if you're settling in with a cup of coffee, or you've got this on while you're driving, do me a favor and hit that like button and drop a comment telling me where in the world you're listening from. I read every one of them. This story goes places, friend. Stay with me. I got her into my truck, a 12-year-old F-250 that smells like cut cedar and WD-40 and always will, and I drove her down that mountain to Ridgeline Memorial with the flashers on. Then I sat in an ER waiting room at 4 in the morning under lights that buzz, drinking coffee out of a machine that tasted like a penny, staring at a wall-mounted television with the sound off. And every 90 seconds my brain played the same clip. Not she's sick, not she's sleeping, she's not well enough to leave. Leave. Like she was a coat somebody had hung in their closet. A doctor came out around 4:45. Young woman, tired around the eyes in a way you only get on a night shift. She told me Kayla was stable. Mild concussion, dehydration, blood pressure in the basement. They'd run a tox screen because of how she came in. What about her arm? I said. Those are finger marks. I've seen 1,000 injuries. Those are fingers. She looked at her tablet for a second longer than she needed to. Your daughter came around while we were starting her IV, she said. She told us she took her medication, had 2 glasses of wine, got dizzy on the back steps, and her husband caught her by the arms to keep her from going down. She gave that account twice, consistently, and she declined a forensic exam. Legally, my hands are tied. I can't force a report. So that's it. That's not what I said. She glanced at the doors, then back at me. Mr. Delgado, I've been doing this a while. I'm going to leave a card on her bedside table for a domestic crisis advocate. And I'd take it as a personal favor if you made sure she doesn't go back up that mountain until she's ready to. Here's the thing that ate me alive for the next 48 hours. Not the bruises. The story. It was too clean. My daughter charts patients for a living. She knows exactly what a nurse writes down and what a nurse doesn't. That wasn't a woman covering for a man out of love. That was a woman handing over a version of events she had already decided to give. I sat by that bed for 2 days, held her hand, watched the monitor, and I thought about every Sunday I'd spent at that family's table, eating off their good plates, telling myself Trent Ashby was a solid guy because he had a firm handshake and a job in his daddy's company, and he opened doors for people. A handshake. That's what I based 29 years of protecting my daughter on. I should have been watching what he did with his eyes when she talked. On the second night, she came back. Not the fog and mumble version. All the way back. Eyes open, focused, scared. Dad, I'm right here, kiddo. She grabbed my hand hard enough to hurt. Did you say anything to them? After. Did you call anybody? I'm calling a lawyer in the morning. And then I'm calling the sheriff. And then I'm going up that mountain and having a conversation with your husband that's been about 2 years overdue. No. She shook her head, fast, almost frantic. No, Dad, listen to me. Don't call anybody. Don't go up there. Don't touch him, please. That stopped me cold. Of every single thing I expected my daughter to say to me in that hospital bed, don't fight back was not on the list. Kayla, baby. I saw your arm. I know what you saw. Her voice cracked, but her eyes stayed level. I've known for 8 months. Known what? She reached under the blanket and pulled out her phone. Screen spidered in one corner, case held together with a rubber band. She turned it toward me and started swiping. Photographs of documents. Screenshots. Bank notifications. A calendar with dates circled. If you go after Trent, she said, if you hit him, if you make one loud noise in the wrong room, his family's lawyer will bury you and I will lose. Do you understand me? I don't lose a fight with them. I lose everything. Then explain it to me. She took a breath, and my 29-year-old daughter said something that took the floor out from under me. Dad, they're trying to have me declared incompetent. I want you to sit with that for a second, friend, the way I had to. You know what happened to my wife. Some of you have been with me a while, so you know I lost Elena 4 years ago. What you might not know is how. She went into an urgent care in June with pain in her side and a heart rate through the roof, and she came out with a prescription for acid reflux, and she was gone by the first week of September. Sepsis. Missed. Twice. There was a lawsuit. There was a settlement. I didn't want a dime of it, and I didn't take a dime of it. It went to Kayla, because Elena's whole life was that girl, and because the lawyers said a young beneficiary made sense, and because I wanted my daughter to have something solid under her feet in a world that had just proved to her it could take her mother in 11 weeks. $1.6 million. Structured, invested, sitting in an account with her name on it. My wife's life converted into a number. They filed a petition 3 weeks ago, Kayla said. Emergency conservatorship. Warren and Trent as co-conservators. Person and property. That means the money, the account, where I live, what I take, whether I can quit a job or sign a lease or file for divorce, all of it. Signed over to them by a judge because of my condition. You don't have a condition. I have a file. She swiped again and held the phone up. Dad, look. Psychiatric evaluations. 3 of them, on letterhead, signed by a Dr. Lionel Brandt, a man Warren Ashby had gone to medical school with, a man who had never in his life sat in a room with my daughter. 16 pages describing a woman with worsening delusions, paranoid ideation about her in-laws, medication non-compliance. And this is the part that made my ears ring, a documented pattern of self-injury. Self-injury, that's the word they were building. So that when someone eventually saw the marks on her arms, the file would already say she'd done it herself. There are pharmacy records, she said. Trent filled prescriptions in my name at 3 different places with a doctor's authorization I never gave. There's a signed medication compliance agreement. There's a letter from Marguerite to the court about my increasing outbursts at family gatherings. Dad, they've been building this for over a year, one piece of paper at a time, and every single piece of it is dated, notarized, and looks exactly like the real thing. I sat down in that vinyl hospital chair because my legs had stopped participating. The hearing's in 11 weeks, she said. Probate court, downtown. And Dad, they need one more thing to walk it through. They need a statement from a close blood relative saying they've seen the decline too. She looked at me. They need you. That's when I understood what this actually was. This wasn't a bad marriage. This wasn't a temper. This was a robbery with a filing cabinet instead of a crowbar. And my daughter was the safe, and they had spent 1.5 years building a story where nothing she ever said again would count as evidence about anything. Okay, I said. So we hire the best attorney in Hamilton County, and we bring all of this into that courtroom. With what? She shut the phone off. Screenshots on a cracked phone from a woman with 3 psychiatric evaluations in her file. They will put Brandt on the stand with credentials as long as your arm, and he will say, calmly, that everything I just told you is exactly the delusion he documented. That's how it's built, Dad. Anything I say against them becomes proof I'm sick. The room got real quiet. Then what do we do? And my daughter, the one I taught to ride a bike in a church parking lot in East Ridge, the one who cried when we let a caught fish go, looked at me with her mother's exact face and said, we don't swing at them. We let them keep swinging, and we make sure somebody official is standing right there when they miss. She had it all worked out. She'd had it worked out for weeks, lying in that house at night pretending to be asleep. They needed my signature. So I was going to give them a father who was finally coming around. A tired old man, worn down, worried sick about his unstable daughter, grateful to a good family for stepping up. And a man like that gets invited in. He gets shown the file, so he understands. He gets introduced to the doctor, so he's reassured. He gets walked through the paperwork by the family attorney, so he can sign in the right places. They'll hand you everything, she said, not because they're stupid, because it's never once occurred to them that somebody would say no to them. And what are you doing while I'm doing that? I'm going to be exactly what their file says I am. Her jaw set, quiet, compliant, medicated, grateful. And I'm going to be pulling my own badge scans, my shift logs, my patient assignments, and every timestamp I've ever generated at that hospital. Why? Because every evaluation in that file has a date on it, Dad. She smiled for the first time in 2 days, and it was not a nice smile, and I was so proud of her I could hardly breathe. And I think I was at work. I have never been more scared of anything in my life. Not a roof about to go, not the phone call about Elena, nothing. I said yes anyway. Have you ever shaken a man's hand and smiled while you did the arithmetic on how much of his life you were about to take? I did, for 11 weeks. And here's what nobody tells you about that kind of revenge. The real kind. Not the movie kind, it's boring. It's not a shouting match. It's sitting in your kitchen at 1 in the morning with a legal pad and a printer that jams, going cross-eyed over dates, while a woman who tried to erase your daughter texts you a recipe. I called Warren 9 days after the hospital. Hardest phone call of my life, harder than the one where I told my mother about Elena. Warren, it's Ray. I made myself sound smaller, older. I owe you an apology for the other night. The pause on that line was the sound of a man deciding he'd been right about everything all along. Ray, he said warmly, I have to tell you, that took real character. Character, he told me I had character. We met for lunch at a place downtown with brick walls and a wine list, and I let him do most of the talking, and after about 40 minutes I gave him the sentence he'd been fishing for. Warren, I'm 62. I've got no wife, one kid, and a lot of quiet in that house. And I can't do this on my own anymore. If y'all have got a plan for her, I need to hear it. Because I've been scared for a while now, and I've been telling myself it was nothing. You want to know what a fish looks like the moment it takes the hook? Look at a rich man being told he was right. I was inside, in 3 weeks. They showed me the file at their dining room table, the whole thing, in a navy binder with tabs. Warren walked me through it with a pen, like he was reading a chart. Marguerite made a buttermilk chess pie and cut me a piece, and put her hand on my shoulder and said, Ray, this is what family does. I ate that pie. I told her it was the best thing I'd had all year. Lady, I thought, you have no idea what you're feeding. They introduced me to Dr. Lionel Brandt at a Rotary lunch. 68 years old, beautiful silver hair, handshake like a politician. He told me, and I want you to hear this, friend, because this is the exact sentence he told me, Ray, the hardest part of a case like your daughter's is the family's guilt. You have nothing to feel guilty about. I said, that's a load off, doctor. I met Curtis Vance, the family attorney, in an office with a view of the river, and he slid a draft affidavit across the desk with my name already typed at the bottom, 3 pages. All about a father who had watched his daughter deteriorate since her mother's death. Signature line waiting. Take it home, he said. Read it. No rush. We just need it back before the 14th. I took it home. I read it 11 times. I never signed it. And every night, Kayla and I sat at that kitchen table with the laptop between us, the same table where she used to do her chemistry homework. And I know how that sounds, but it's true. And it's the detail I can't get out of my head. And we built the other one, the real one, line by line. Because here's what happens with people who have never once been told no. They stop checking the locks on their own doors. They gave me copies. Copies. Warren photocopied a forged psychiatric evaluation and handed it to me across his own dining room table because it did not enter his mind that I was anything but grateful. We started with the dates. Kayla pulled 18 months of badge scans from hospital HR, every door she'd ever swiped through, time-stamped to the second plus shift assignments, charting logins, and 2 mandatory training sessions with sign-in sheets. Evaluation 1. A 90-minute in-office psychiatric assessment dated the 14th of March, 2 in the afternoon. On the 14th of March, at 2 p.m., Kayla Delgado badged into a trauma bay and was documented on a code that ran 40 minutes, 22 miles from Brandt's office. Evaluation 2. Dated a Thursday in June. She'd worked a double, 14 hours. 61 chart entries under her login. Evaluation 3. Dated in August. She was in a windowless conference room at a mandatory compliance training with her signature on a sheet and her face in a group photo somebody's manager posted on the hospital's internal page. 3. Evaluations. 3. Impossibilities. That good doctor had never met my daughter. Then we found the prescriptions. Filled in her name across 3 pharmacies. Picked up by Trent. None of them ever swallowed. Then we found the withdrawals, small ones, 4 figures, moving out of the settlement account under a family financial management authorization, signed with a version of Kayla's signature that I knew was wrong the second I saw it, because I've had that girl's handwriting on my refrigerator since she was 6 years old. And then, on a Tuesday night in December, we found the thing that made me have to go stand outside. Kayla had requested her own medical records, every facility that had ever touched her name. Buried in it was a pre-admission packet from a private behavioral health facility outside Nashville. Voluntary intake. Bed reserved. Insurance pre-authorized. Family transport arranged. Admission date, the 15th of October, 9 o'clock in the morning. Friend. She called me at 2:14 a.m. on the 15th of October. That night wasn't a fight that went too far. That night was the night before. There was a bed with her name on it, 130 miles away, waiting for a woman who by 9 a.m. would have been a patient instead of a person, in a locked unit, with a file that said everything she'd ever say from that day forward was a symptom. I stood on my own back steps in the cold with my hands on the rail, and I breathed for a long time. I got there 6 hours and 46 minutes early. That's the whole story of my life, right there, 6 hours and 46 minutes. Let me ask you something, and I want you to actually answer me in the comments, because I've thought about it every day since. If it was your kid on that floor, would you have gone through that door? Or would you have stood there and been polite? Trent came to my house unannounced in January. No jacket, hands in his pockets, standing in my carport looking like a man who hadn't slept right in a month. Ray, can we talk? Man to man. Sure, son. Come on in. Come on in. By then I could lie with my whole face, and my face didn't argue anymore. He sat on my couch, the same couch he'd sat on for 4 Thanksgivings, and rubbed the back of his neck. I just want to make sure we're square, you and me, after October. Water under the bridge. He looked at me a beat too long, and for about 1 heartbeat, I thought he saw it. I thought the whole thing was over right there in my living room. Then he let his breath out and gave me that Ashby smile his daddy taught him. Good. That's good. Because at the end of the day, family looks out for each other. Right? Right, I said. Family looks out for each other. And in 3 weeks, son, you're going to find out exactly what that means. 9 days before the hearing, Kayla and I walked into the Hamilton County District Attorney's office with a banker's box. Not a phone. Not a theory. A box, tabbed and indexed and cross-referenced, with a 2-page cover summary she wrote herself, because that is how my daughter's mind works. It took 11 days and 4 meetings and 1 very long afternoon with a special agent from the state's Medicaid Fraud Control Unit named Dana Whitaker, who read for 2 straight hours and then took her glasses off and said, "Miss Delgado, how long have you been collecting this?" "Since I found the first evaluation in his gym bag," Kayla said. 8 months. Agent Whitaker looked at me. "And you've been sitting at their dinner table this whole time?" "Ma'am," I said. "I've eaten 4 of that woman's pies. They asked us to do one thing. They asked us not to warn anybody and to let the hearing happen, because a fraudulent document sitting in a drawer is a piece of paper. A fraudulent document presented to a judge in open court to take a woman's rights away is a felony committed in front of witnesses, on the record, with a court reporter typing every word. So we let them walk in. If you're still with me, and I hope you are, because we're at the part I've been waiting the whole story to tell you, hit that like button. Make sure you're subscribed so you don't miss the next one. And tell me down below where you're watching from. It means more than you know. The hearing was on a Thursday morning in probate court downtown. 2nd floor, radiator hissing. One of those rooms with fluorescent lights and wood paneling and a flag that needs ironing. They came in like a Christmas card. Warren in a charcoal suit. Marguerite in pearls, carrying her purse with both hands. Curtis Vance with a rolling briefcase. Dr. Lionel Brandt, silver hair, credentials in a leather folio, there to testify as an expert. And Trent, last, hands in his pockets. And I'll say this, some part of him knew. Men like that always know a little. They just don't let themselves believe it until the door's already shut. Kayla sat in the second row in a gray sweater with her hands folded, looking exactly like the quiet, medicated, cooperative woman in the file. She'd earned an Oscar, and nobody was ever going to give her one. Marguerite leaned over and squeezed my arm. Ray, thank you for being here. She'll understand someday. I believe she will, I said. Vance opened. He was good. I'll give him that. He talked about a grieving daughter, a devoted husband, a family stepping up. He introduced the evaluations. He tendered Dr. Brandt. Brandt took the stand and told that courtroom, under oath, that he had personally examined my daughter on 3 occasions and observed a deteriorating psychiatric condition with self-injurious behavior. Judge Ellender asked if the respondent's counsel had questions. And Kayla's attorney, a woman named Priya Raman, 41 years old, 5'1", hired quietly in November and never once mentioned to a single Ashby, stood up. Just a few, Your Honor. I watched Warren Ashby's head turn. Dr. Brandt, would you read the date and time of your first examination into the record? He read it. And you're certain? 90 minutes? Your office? That date? Certain. She handed up an exhibit. Then another. Then another. Badge scans. Shift logs. A code sheet with my daughter's initials on it. A sign-in sheet. A photograph. And then, one by one, the same for the second date. And the third. You could hear that radiator hissing. Brandt's mouth opened and nothing came out of it, and the silence went on so long that the judge looked up from the exhibits. Then Miss Raman said, Your Honor, before we continue, I'd ask the court's indulgence. There are individuals in the hallway who have business with these proceedings. The doors opened. Special Agent Dana Whitaker came in with 2 investigators from the Tennessee Bureau of Investigation, an assistant district attorney, and an inspector from the State Board of Medical Examiners. Whitaker walked up the aisle and handed the judge a folder and said something quiet, and Judge Ellender read for about 90 seconds, and then set it down and took her glasses off. Mr. Vance, she said, your petition is dismissed with prejudice. Dr. Brandt, do not leave this courtroom. Curtis Vance was on his feet. Your Honor, my clients had no knowledge. Counselor, the judge said, sit down. Warren Ashby turned around in his seat and found me. His face was the color of an old newspaper. Ray, he said, you did this. I leaned forward a little, and I want you to know, I have never in my life been calmer than I was in that moment. No, Warren, I said. You did this a year and a half ago. All I did was turn the lights on so somebody could see it. Marguerite stood up so fast her purse hit the floor. We fed you. You sat at my table. You ate my food. There it is, friend. That's the whole family right there. Not is my daughter-in-law all right. Not what have we done. You ate my food. Ma'am, I said, I felt bad for about 4 seconds back in October pushing past you in that doorway. That's the only guilt I've ever owed you, and I paid it that night. She had nothing. First time since I met that woman. And Trent, of course, he tried. They always do. He turned around and got that soft voice out, the one he'd probably been using on my daughter since the day he met her. Kayla. Baby. Whatever they think this is, we can fix it. Just you and me. Baby. After a reserved bed in Nashville with her name on it, I had to hold on to the bench in front of me. Kayla stood up. She looked at him for a long moment. Long enough that the whole room was holding its breath, me included. Then she said, I called my father at 2 a.m. because I thought I was never coming out of your parents' house. There's no you and me. There hasn't been for a long time. She slid a folder down the row to Miss Raman. The divorce filing was signed Tuesday, and the pharmacy records went to the DA in January. So you can stop wondering how. They put the handcuffs on Trent Ashby in the second-floor hallway of the Hamilton County Courthouse, in front of his mother. I'm going to give you the part I know you want, because I've read your comments on stories like this, and I know exactly what you've all been asking. And you deserve a straight answer instead of some vague, and they got what was coming to them. Here's what happened to them. Everyone. Dr. Lionel Brandt lost his license in 11 weeks, surrendered it before the board could take it, which fools nobody. He was indicted federally on healthcare fraud and false statements, pled guilty in the spring, and is serving 41 months. He's 68. He'll be 71 when he gets out, with no license, no practice, and a name that pulls up 200 results. Trent Ashby pled to aggravated assault and conspiracy to commit theft over $250,000, 7 years. Parole eligible at 4. The assault charge stuck because those emergency room photographs from October, the ones my daughter refused to let them use at the time, were still in the system, time-stamped, with 4 finger marks on her forearm. Warren Ashby got 28 months and a restitution order for $640,000, surrendered his medical license, and had his name pulled off the wing of a building he donated to. Marguerite got 18 months and 5 years probation. For her part, she notarized documents she knew were false, and she wrote a letter to a court about outbursts that never happened. She was removed from the charity board she'd chaired for 19 years. The Sunday invitations stopped. Word travels fast in a county like this one, and there's no seat at the table for a woman who tried to have her son's wife committed to get at a dead woman's settlement money. Kayla got all of it back. Every dollar that moved, plus interest, plus damages from a civil suit that Vance's own malpractice carrier settled in about 9 minutes. The conservatorship petition is a matter of public record, dismissed with prejudice, which is the law's way of saying never again, not ever. The divorce was final on a Tuesday morning, 7 months later. No shouting, no drama. A judge, a stamp, and a clerk who called the next case. I picked her up from the courthouse that day. Same truck, same Cedar and WD-40. She got in, buckled up, and just sat there for a second, with her eyes closed, and then she took a breath, a real one, all the way down, the kind you don't realize you've been missing until it finally comes back. "You all right?" I asked. "Yeah." She watched the courthouse get small in the side mirror. "Yeah, Dad. I'm all right." She's back on shift now. Nights, mostly. She bought a little place in Red Bank with a porch and a dog named Biscuit, who is the worst dog I have ever met. Last month, she got asked to speak to a group of nursing students about recognizing patients who are being controlled instead of cared for, and she said yes, and she did it without notes, and I sat in the back row like a fool with my eyes running. Some victories are loud, courtrooms and headlines and big speeches. Ours wasn't, really. Ours was a bunch of dates on a piece of paper that didn't match a bunch of dates on another piece of paper, and 11 weeks of an old man saying thank you to people he wanted to throw off a mountain. They thought money made them untouchable. Turned out all it took was one furious father, one very patient daughter, and a doctor who couldn't be bothered to check whether the woman he was diagnosing was standing in a trauma bay at the time. And I'll tell you what, watching all of it come down was worth every single bite of Marguerite Ashby's chess pie. If you're one of the good ones, and I think you are, or you wouldn't have stayed with me this long, hit that like button, get yourself subscribed, and tell me down in the comments where in this world you're listening from. I'll see you on the next one, friend.